Hi, everyone. It's now 2 o'clock, and we'll start with a short introduction, and then to let people still get into the webinar, and then we'll move on to the first program. So welcome to this webinar on the subject discrimination in healthcare. My name is Sara Wide Gustafsson, and I'm the president of the Swedish Society of Medicine Student and Junior Doctor section, which in Swedish is Svenska Läkares Kandidat och underläkarföreningen. And with me today, I have two friends from Kandidat och underläkarföreningen. Hanna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Sarah. So my name is Hanna Jandal. I'm a medical doctor in Umeå, and I'm also the Secretary of Ethics for the same organization, SLS KUF, so Swedish Medical Association's Junior Doctor and Student section. And it's great to be here with you all today. And also organizing this event with us, we have Sixten. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone, Sixten Lundmark. I'm a medical student in Lund and also Secretary for Public Health in this organization. And today I will mostly helping out with the background and gathering questions from everyone who are participating. There is a question and answer function which you can use to send us questions later in the program. So I'll help you out through that option. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So we will do a short introduction of Kandidat och underläkarföreningen in Swedish, and then we'll switch back to English again. Så i samarbete med kursledningen på HSM-kursen så har vi Kandidat och underläkarföreningen anordnat en eftermiddag med diskussion inom ett aktuellt ämne sedan några år tillbaka. Och vi är väldigt glada över den här möjligheten och ser fram emot dagens program. Och Svenska Läkaresällskapet är läkarkårens oberoende vetenskapliga professionsorganisation, och ledorden för sällskapet är vetenskap, utbildning, etik och kvalitet. Och Kandidat- och underläkarföreningen då riktar sig till läkarstudenter och yngre läkare fram till och med legitimation. Och vår verksamhet är både nationell men även lokalt baserad, och fokusområden som vårt arbete kretsar kring är bland annat etik, global hälsa, prevention, utbildning, vetenskap, e-hälsa och kvalitet i sjukvården. Och det vi gör är att vi anordnar eftermiddagar likt denna med paneldiskussioner, workshops, men också masterclasses. Vi skriver debattartiklar om väldigt mycket annat. Och kolla gärna in vår hemsida och Facebook-sida för mer information. Ni ser länkarna på skärmen. Och ni är också varmt välkomna att höra av er till mig på ordförande@slskuf.se om ni har några frågor eller är intresserade av att veta mer. Och nu lämnar jag över ordet till Hanna som är etiksekreterare i KUF.
Tack för det, Sara. Som etiksekreterare för vår förening så har vi under året startat upp en ny arbetsgrupp där vi är nu mellan 5 till 10 aktiva, så en mindre grupp inom föreningen, men som har organiserat olika events där vi också samarbetat med vår global hälsogrupp och vår preventionsgrupp bland annat. Det har varit mycket olika idéer på hur vi kan nå ut och engagera fler läkarstudenter och unga läkare. För det är många som hör av sig och upplever att de etiska frågorna kanske inte alltid tas tid för under utbildningen eller när man börjar jobba som underläkare, att det är mycket etiska frågor man ställs inför och det är svårt att veta vem och hur man ska diskutera det här med. Och därför så försöker vi koppla ihop vår grupp och unga läkare och studenter med olika experter inom etik. Så under våren så hade vi bland annat ett event om tuberkulos och hur behandling och prevention och sidosatts under pandemin tillsammans med Sixten, Helén och preventionsgruppen. Och vi hade även ett event om vaccin equity, alltså orättvisor inom global vaccinfördelning med bland annat Johan von Schreeb, men också då tillsammans med preventionsgruppen. Och under hösten så hoppas vi kunna fortsätta belysa viktiga frågor, och har ni tips eller förslag till oss så får ni jättegärna höra av er. Ni kan mejla via Saras e-mail så guidar hon dem till oss. Eller om ni kommer ihåg till etik@slskuf.se. Och jag kan också dela med mig utav de webbinarier som vi redan har haft på länkar i kommentarerna här ifall någon är intresserad. Och med det så tror jag att vi ska visa nästa slide bara lite kring vårt arbete kring just diskriminering. För det har varit en fokusfråga för oss inom SLS KUF, men då framförallt inom etikgruppen. Och under våren så bjöd vi in Emelie Kristoffersson som är nu har doktorerat inom ämnet rasism inom vården. Och det här är en bild på hennes avhandling. Och nu har jag faktiskt inte uppe något av hennes citat här. Sara, har du det så får du jättegärna läsa upp något.
Absolut, för att introducera och belysa dagens ämne lite så vill vi bara ta upp något citat som kommit fram ur gruppintervjuer som Emelie gjorde under sin forskning. Och ett citat är då skriker överläkaren: stopp, stopp! Vi har en språkbarriär här. Sjuksköterskan förstår inte vad du säger. Alltså så här, jättehögt. Låter ledsen på rösten. Alltså det var ju hur många människor som helst i rummet. Och så säger han flera gånger att jag har språkbarriär. Och bara, det heter inga prover till imorgon. Inte tills imorgon. Det blir fel. Och jag skämdes ihjäl. Och bara, okej, gud, förlåt. Och sjuksköterskan bara, men jag förstår ju vad du säger. Det var ett citat från en läkarstudent. Och ett annat citat. Sen har man fått frågor om religion. Även lärare och elever kan fråga. Hur brukar ni göra? Och då tänker jag, vadå vi? Så det var 2 korta citat. Och lämnar jag över till Hanna igen.
Tack för det, Sara. Och om man är mer intresserad så går det att läsa mer via Umeå universitets hemsida om man googlar på Emelie Kristoffersson. Och hon kunde tyvärr inte vara med idag och presentera själv, men det är en av de personer som har inspirerat oss till att arbeta med diskriminering under året. Och om vi får nästa slide, så en annan person som har inspirerat oss är Kaveri Mitra, läkarstudent på KI, som var en av initiativtagarna då till ett upprop i media under våren kring att vi vill se större krafttag gentemot diskriminering, uppmärksamma att det finns, men också se konkreta aktioner som förebygger och för att hantera det på ett bättre sätt, både under läkarutbildningen, i vården och då också gentemot patienter, diskrimineringen av patienter. Och Kaveri Mitra kunde tyvärr inte heller delta idag, men vi hoppas att kunna ha ett event med henne här under hösten. Så vi får se och återkomma med det. Och en liten introduktion då till vad vi har gjort och lämna över till Sara som ska få berätta om dagens spännande program.
So we'll now switch back to English and we will discuss discrimination in healthcare, focusing on ethical discrimination and from the perspective of the patient as well of the healthcare workers. And as we just mentioned, this subject has been discussed rather frequently the last year in Swedish media, and it requires a joint effort to counteract structural discrimination in healthcare and within the healthcare community. And we will start the afternoon with 2 presentations, which will be done in Swedish. And one will be by Lotta Wendel, who will discuss what is discrimination. And the second one is by Cecilia Lundmark, who will discuss more about the discrimination in healthcare. And that would also be in Swedish. And then we'll have a short coffee break. And then we'll do the panel discussion, which is the main event of the afternoon. And like Sixten mentioned, please send in questions if you have them already, or if you get them during the presentations. And now we'll do a quick presentation of today's guests, and then we'll do a further presentation later.
So first, as mentioned, we have Lotta Wendel. She is our legal expert here today from Malmö University, And she is also a member of the Delegation of Medical Ethics within the Swedish Society of Medicine. And you will get to present yourself more later, but now we'll just do the first round of quick presentations. So our next guest is Cecilia Lundmark, a nurse and ethical advisor at the Ethical Forum at Sahlgrenska University Hospital. And with us also we have David Ojalvo, and I hope I pronounced your name okay, otherwise please correct me later. And you are a resident physician in family medicine at vårdcentralen Wisby Söder. And we have Madeleine Liljegren, President Swedish Junior Doctors Association. And also for the panel discussion, we have Oliver Schulz, General Director of Médecins Sans Frontières, so Doctors Without Borders, Sweden. And Mathilde Gray, District Nurse at the Health Referral Clinic in Stockholm of the Swedish Red Cross. So these are all of our guests and experts for today, and we will welcome you all back later. But for now, we will start with the first part where Lotta will tell us more about what discrimination is. So we will stop sharing our screen and let you share your presentation, Lotta. Perfekt.
Så, och då går jag över till svenska. Välkomna och tack så mycket för att jag blev inbjuden här. Jag heter alltså Lotta Wendel och jag är verksam vid Malmö Universitet där jag undervisar och forskar i medicinsk rätt. Jag är alltså specialiserad på reglerna som rör hälso- och sjukvården och undervisar bland annat läkarstudenter i Skåne på lite olika kurser. Men idag så ska jag prata om diskriminering inom hälso- och sjukvården, och eftersom det är mest aktuellt utifrån DNs granskning när patienter diskriminerar personal så kommer jag uppehålla mig mest vid det. Men jag tänker först att reglerna är sin sak, men man pratar också om hur reglerna i praktiken, de landar ju i en kontext. Så jag tänker vi kan först placera bestämmelserna någonstans. Det är ju ett välkänt problem, även om det nu uppmärksammas lite extra, att patienter har önskemål när det gäller yrkesutövarnas etnicitet, kön eller sexualitet till exempel. Och de här önskemålen kommer ju från olika platser, men jag tycker ett sammanhang som är viktigt att lyfta fram är att hälso- och sjukvården, de som arbetar där, består av yrkesgrupper som är kraftigt kodade utifrån kön, etnicitet, sexualitet och så vidare. Det finns ganska mycket forskning i historiskt perspektiv som visar hur tydligt läkarrollen har vuxit fram utifrån idéer om maskulinitet och sjuksköterskerollen på motsvarande sätt utifrån någon slags femininitet. Och de som har försökt bryta sig in och har ett annat kön har fått bryta sig in och hitta sin plats under olika historiska villkor. I det ligger också en slags heteronormativitet, att man i historiskt perspektiv, men också idag kan applicera någon slags familjetänkande på vilka roller personerna har på kliniken. Men det finns också idéer och sådana här djupt liggande föreställningar om vilken etnicitet som är förknippad med god yrkesutövning. Det andra perspektivet här som jag tycker är värt att lyfta fram är ju den, nu ska vi se, har vi fått den patientcentrerade vården som har vuxit fram framförallt under det senaste decenniet, och det märks ju på olika sätt. Det märks i lagstiftningen, inte minst, som är en skyldighetslagstiftning där vårdgivare och personal är skyldiga att tillhandahålla god vård för patienten utifrån vetenskap och prövad erfarenhet. Patienten har inga rättigheter utan skyldigheterna har lagts på de som ska tillhandahålla vården. Och skyldigheterna sträcker sig ganska långt, och de som arbetar är ju hela tiden medvetna om sin skyldighet att tillhandahålla god vård och behandling. Och det ligger ju också i professionsetiken att man vill hjälpa, man vill finnas till hands, man vill erbjuda den kompetensen man har. Och i det ligger ju också att man kan ha en stor tolerans för patientens allmäntillstånd. Om patienten är förvirrad eller har stark smärta och så kan det ju få fernissan och krackelera och patienten att bete sig på ett sätt som en människa aldrig annars skulle göra. Säga saker och ge uttryck för känslor och så. Och det finns ju en stor vana och vilja att inte låta det påverka vården för de som arbetar där. Och det tredje perspektivet är ju kundperspektivet som ju delvis hänger ihop med den här patientcentrerade vården. Där vården är en marknad. Ska vi se om här var en kommentar. Ja. Vården är en marknad. De olika vårdgivarna ska konkurrera med varandra och det märks ju framförallt inom primärvården där vi har ett vårdval. Patienten ska lista sig på en klinik, men tankesättet och diskursen är ju bredare än så. Och man vill ha patienter, och särskilt för privata verksamheter är det ju helt nödvändigt att ha patienter för att man ska kunna vara verksam. Och i det ligger också att man mäter kundnöjdhet. Det är viktigt att vara populär, det är viktigt att bedriva sin verksamhet utifrån att man är en tjänst som ska vara attraktiv. Och i den här kontexten så finns det också diskrimineringen och de här önskemålen som det finns en benägenhet att tillgodose. Helt kort om lagstiftningen då. När patienten har sådana här önskemål som ju är diskriminerande till sin natur, är det otillåtet att ha den sortens önskemål? Ja, till att börja med så är diskriminering en sak i dagligt tal. Det står ju för en slags särbehandling som kanske gränsar till en kränkning. Men i lagstiftningens mening så har man ju en smalare tillämpning för vad diskriminering är för någonting. Det finns i brottsbalken ett brott som heter olaga diskriminering som innebär att man särbehandlar på och missgynnar grupper. Men det förbudet i brottsbalken riktar sig bara mot näringsidkare. Om det skulle vara så att en vårdgivare bestämde sig för att inte ta emot patienter med en viss etnicitet till exempel, så skulle det vara ett brott mot diskrimineringsförbudet. Men något sånt har vi ju inte sett tydligt uttryckt hittills i alla fall. Det finns också, som jag tycker kan vara intressant, ett brott som kallas för förolämpning som andra professioner i andra verksamheter, framförallt inom rättsväsendet, poliser, åklagare, domare använder sig av när de blir behandlade eller blir tilltalade på ett olämpligt sätt, ett kränkande sätt. Men jag har inte sett några fall när man har använt sig av det här inom hälso- och sjukvården, men det borde vara möjligt om en patient är alldeles otillständig mot de som är där för att hjälpa och stå till tjänst. För det finns en skamgräns för vad man får lov att säga till de människorna som ska tillhandahålla insatser. Och sen slutligen diskrimineringslagen. Ska vi se, hade jag en. Ja, diskrimineringslagen förbjuder ju då diskriminering. Och diskriminering innebär ju att man behandlar någon på ett sätt, man missgynnar någon utifrån 7 kategorier som har skydd i lagen. Kön, sexualitet, könsöverskridande uttryck, etnicitet, religion, funktionshinder och så vidare. Det är bara de 7 kategorierna som är skyddade. Och den förbjuder direkt och indirekt diskriminering. Och direkt diskriminering är när man till exempel säger att man inte vill träffa en läkare för att läkaren är man eller för att läkaren har en viss religion eller har en viss hudfärg eller så. Alltså när man har med en direkt hänvisning till den här kategorin har reducerat bort någon. Indirekt diskriminering är när man särbehandlar någon med hänvisning till ett till synes neutralt villkor. Det kan vara till exempel språk. När man säger jag vill inte träffa personer som inte kan mitt språk. Eller jag anställer inte personer som inte kan ett visst språk. Indirekt diskriminering kan vara tillåten om det här kravet är nödvändigt för att man ska kunna bedriva sin verksamhet på ett gott sätt. Så man kan säga att från arbetsgivarens sida är det fullt tillåtet att ställa språkkrav på sin personal för att man har en skyldighet att informera patienten, man har en skyldighet att kommunicera och förstå patienten. Så språkkravet är ju en förutsättning för att kunna tillhandahålla god vård. Men Indirekt diskriminering som kanske handlar om hur personer klär sig eller beter sig på ett annat sätt, där det inte finns någon rationell anledning till att det skulle vara viktigt inom hälso- och sjukvården, är det då inte tillåtet. I samhället för övrigt så är indirekt diskriminering mycket vanligare än direkt diskriminering, för människor är ju ändå lite hyfsade, så de säger ju inte rakt ut vad de tycker och tänker, utan istället kommer man med omskrivningar, att man inte gillar personer med vissa frisyrer eller som har vissa kulturella traditioner eller så. Och så försöker man omskriva det till att det skulle vara en slags neutral och rationell anledning till att särbehandla personen. I diskriminering så har vi, nu ska vi se, diskriminering är förbjuden i hälso- och sjukvården enligt diskrimineringslagen, och det står i 2 kapitlet 13 paragrafen. Men det diskrimineringsförbudet riktar sig mot vårdgivare och personal som då inte får lov att diskriminera patienter. Så patienter skyddas av diskrimineringsförbudet inom hälso- och sjukvården. Det finns åtminstone ett rättsfall där man har dömts för olaga diskriminering. Och det gällde ju ett fall i Uppsala där man genomförde en gynekologisk undersökning där man menade sig ha grund att misstänka könsstympning, men där det inte fanns, den här misstanken hade ingen rationell grund egentligen, och det visade sig också att flickan inte var könsstympad. Och det här hade man genomdrivit då bara för att man hade dragit slutsatser utifrån familjens etnicitet och inga andra skäl. Men så finns det ju också ett diskrimineringsförbud i arbetslivet. Och det är ju det som diskrimineringslagen framförallt handlar om. Och det innebär att arbetsgivaren får inte särbehandla personal, varken på direkta vis eller på indirekta vis, och missgynna personal utifrån deras tillhörighet till någon av de här 7 kategorierna. Så man kan säga att så fort vårdgivaren börjar organisera vården utifrån patientens önskemål om att få möta personal med en viss hudfärg eller ett visst kön, så finns det stor risk att arbetsgivaren bryter mot det här diskrimineringsförbudet i arbetslivet. Man kan också säga att arbetsgivaren har också en skyldighet att arbeta aktivt med aktiva åtgärder för att motverka diskriminering. Och det betyder ju att man måste informera personalen om hur man ska bete sig, att man inte ska tolerera till exempel sådana här önskemål. För när man börjar göra det så innebär ju det också att man på ett tyst och informellt sätt accepterar att kollegorna särbehandlas. Och den sortens dolda strukturer har arbetsgivaren en skyldighet att se till att de inte får gro helt enkelt och ta plats i verksamheten. Så när man kommer till punkten slutligen så kan man säga att patienten har stora möjligheter att bete sig olämpligt mot personalen. Men så fort arbetsgivaren börjar organisera sin verksamhet utifrån de här önskemålen så finns det stor anledning att anta att arbetsgivaren bryter mot diskrimineringsförbudet i arbetslivet enligt diskrimineringslagen. Tack för uppmärksamheten, och jag återkommer sen, och ni får gärna ställa frågor i chatten eller på annat sätt. Tack.
Tack så mycket Lotta för din presentation, och särskilt från ditt juridiska perspektiv, vilket jag tänker är otroligt viktigt för många av oss som har läst läkare och kanske inte tagit del av eller har läst någon gång men behöver bli påminda om. Och det är fantastiskt att ha din sakkunskap med idag. Jag har inte fått in någon fråga än, men vi bevakar chatten här och går vidare med Cecilias presentation så länge. Men passa på att ställa era frågor om ni vill i Q&A. Och annars återkommer vi med specifika frågor som vi fått in inför paneldebatten till dig, Lotta.
Tack.
Tack. Då ska vi se, Cecilia.
Ja, nu är jag här. Nu skulle jag bara se om jag kunde dela min presentation här. Som helt plötsligt försvann härifrån. Jag tänkte jag gör det först så att vi har allting på plats.
Det låter.
Nej, det gick inte. Då slutar vi dela det istället. Så kanske du får dela istället då, eftersom om inte det gick här. Vi ser.
Ja.
Jag bara letar lite till här. Jag tror att du får dela den istället. Ska vi se om jag kan ta bort min delning här. Så. Där. Så vi ser om du hittar den där, Hanna. Så kan jag börja med att presentera mig så länge, så lägger vi inte
Det låter bra.
Tid på teknikstrul. Tack för inbjudan, säger jag. Och tack Lotta för din presentation som jag tänker att jag ändå får ha med mig i bakgrunden. Det är precis som Hanna säger, det är skönt att ha det där juridiska bakom sig och som jag tror att vi oftast inte har en riktig aning om. Ett annat problem som jag tänker är att vi jobbar just i vården och vi har någon slags idé om att vi ska stå ut med lite mera och lite extra just för att vi befinner oss i en asymmetrisk maktposition. Jag jobbar alltså på Sahlgrenska Universitetssjukhuset och jag jobbar med övergripande etikfrågor och det kan i stort sett innebära vad som helst. Jag jobbar med utsatta grupper, så det här, för mig har det varit ganska så att när man kom in i det här, personalen också blir kränkt, att byta perspektiv. Nu ska jag se, Hanna, där. Då kanske du får bläddra sen åt mig, Hanna, skulle jag gissa. Att jag inte kan bläddra i din. Du kan börja med första där. Nu ser vi hela där. I nationella etiknätverket som har funnits nästan 20 år tror jag. Så kom det en fråga från Region Jönköping någon gång 2015. Upplever ni på sjukhusen runt om i Sverige att er personal blir kränkt och utsatt? Och frågan var utifrån framförallt sexuella trakasserier. Och det var framförallt riktat mot yngre kvinnor, såväl läkare som sjuksköterskor. Det var situationer där patienter kunde beskriva allting från att åh vad skönt, att kan du hålla mig lite mera där. Och upplevelser som man sedan tog tillbaka ut i sitt kafferum. Och då sa de äldre personalen, äldre läkare, sjuksköterskor, ja men du vet lite får du tåla nu när du jobbar här inom vården. Så där kan det vara, men det är ingen fara. Och även när man gick till sin chef så sa chefen, nej men det kan vi inte gå in och ta i, det är ju patienter vi pratar om. Och jag kommer hålla mig vid sexuella eller vid trakasserier från just patienter och eller närstående. Men precis som Sara läste första där så förekommer ju det här mellan kollegor, medarbetare också. Det är ju någonting som vi också ska ha med oss in, att till exempel när man har tittat på sjuksköterskor, afrosjuksköterskor, där man har studerat, de har en mycket lägre ranking ute på enheterna än sjuksköterskor som kanske ser ut som jag. Alltså man får utföra andra arbetsuppgifter och det blir ganska tydligt ofta. Du kan byta bild, Hanna. Så efter att den här frågan kom till nationella etiknätverket så gick vi tillbaka och tittade på hur vi hade det på våra sjukhus. Och då började Region Jönköping med att ta fram en rutin. Alltså vi såg att det saknades verktyg, det saknades direktiv för att det här faktiskt inte är tillåtet som Lotta var inne på. Att jag som chef inte kan svara att lite får du tåla. Eller att man sitter i kafferummet och någon säger, ja, men det är väl inte så himla farligt. Det man också såg det var att det var väldigt många av till exempel utländsk härkomst som blev utsatt för kränkningar i saker som att, kan du ta in en svensk? Man kunde säga, det är redan städat här. Alltså man utgick från att den här personen kunde enbart jobba med en sak på sjukhuset. Du får inte sticka mig. Du får inte vara i det här rummet. Jag föredrar detta och detta. Och väldigt många av de här personerna som blev utsatta, det var inte de som reagerade utan det var medarbetare och kollegor. För de som var utsatta kunde ganska ofta svara till oss, jag är så van. Jag vet att det händer. Jag tar på mig en rustning och jag går ut i de här sammanhangen. Jag vet precis direkt när jag ser en individ så vet jag vad jag kan bli utsatt för. Utan de medarbetare som sa att så här kan vi inte ha det. Vi kan inte låta det vara så att varje gång Cecilia går ut så måste hon stå i en mottagningssituation och se ifall hon blir godkänd eller inte utifrån patient och eller närstående. Så då tog vi också fram en rutin. Och jag tror Lotta sa någonting om hur arbetar vi med det här. Och det ni ser nu, det är den presentationen som jag har när jag är ute på Sahlgrenska men också i VGR och pratar om det här med medarbetare, kollegor. Så du kan byta bild, Hanna. Så bakgrunden till att vi tog fram den här rutinen som inte alls var självklar. Facken var inte alls självklart med på det här. Vi hade stöd av jurist, vi hade stöd av HR. Men de fackliga tyckte att det här var ganska svårt. Då skulle man verkligen, och det var ju trots allt patienter och sådär. Så jag trodde att vi skulle mötas av något så här, ja, nu gör vi det. Men det tog oss ett år att få igenom den här rutinen. Och nu har det blivit en regional medicinsk riktlinje, eller en regional riktlinje i VGR. Men det har tagit tid. Det vi såg, det var ju att personalen blev otrygg i situationer. Och det kan också påverka patientsäkerheten. Att man inte ville gå in till vissa patienter själv. Vilket gjorde att vi då måste ta en person som egentligen kunde gjort något annat. Och då blir det någon annan patient som blir utan den möjligheten. För att vi behöver vara 2 inne på det rummet. För att patienten hela tiden uttrycker sig kränkande. Sexuella trakasserier där man inte kunde arbeta självständigt. Där man var orolig. Och att de här diskriminerande karaktärerna, om vi inte pratade om det, om vi inte lyfte det, att det istället blev någonting som vi satt liksom och tänkte om i kafferummet. Ska vi tåla detta? Och så var det någon som sa återigen, ja men det kan vi tåla. Nej, jag tycker inte vi kan tåla det. Och så var man nästan lite sämre om man inte tålde det. Eller de här upplevelserna av att jag var lite bättre för att mig vill de, ja men då går jag in och tar det då. För att mig tar de ju gärna emot. Och så ställer vi medarbetare emot varandra i det. Så då tog vi fram den här rutinen och sen har vi varit ute och pratat med dem. Och i den rutinen så finns det också en handlingsplan om hur vi faktiskt ska göra. Så du kan byta bild. Och det här vänder sig framförallt till chefer. Och vi försöker verkligen jobba med att man tar det här på största allvar. Vi har med de här frågorna i våran arbetsmiljökartläggning, heter de väl. Om man har haft upplevelse av kränkning från patienter så att vi kan följa det här. Och vi ser att ungefär 10% av vårdpersonalen upplever att de har blivit utsatta under 1 års tid för någon form av kränkning. Vi vet inte vilken specifik kränkning, för de frågorna kan vi inte ställa. Men att man har upplevt att man har blivit utsatt för kränkning av diskriminerande karaktär. Jag tänker 10% är rätt många. Jag tror att vi är 108 här. Om jag tittar så kan vi själva räkna ut hur många det skulle kunna vara i den här gruppen som har upplevt det på sin arbetsplats. Så då uppmanar vi till att man lyssnar efter orsak. Vad var det som hände i det här sammanhanget? Vilket kontext befinner vi oss i? Att vi reagerar tydligt. Till exempel har vi haft situationer där vi går in och talar om för patienten att det här är inte okej. Du är här för att få god och säker vård. Vi arbetar utifrån evidens och praktiskt. Den sjuksköterskan, den läkaren, den fysioterapeuten som är här inne är fullt kompetent att vara här. Så att vi liksom står på vår personals sida. Jag tror att det är oerhört viktigt att vi tydliggör det. Att vi är bakom det, och i det så kommer också in de mänskliga rättigheterna. Så vi jobbar utifrån det här. I undantagsfall så byter vi vårdpersonal. Men då är vi också väldigt tydliga med att när vi byter så byter vi för exempelvis Hannas skull. Inte för att patienten har önskat det. Utan vi byter för att stötta, för att det blir inte bra. Men då talar vi också om att det är därför vi byter. Skulle vi till exempel vara på där det är möjligt så kan vi också hänvisa till annan vårdgivare. Så här ser det ut idag på vår akutmottagning. Vi har en läkare. Det är den här personen och den är fullt kompetent att utföra den här undersökningen. Och så här ser det ut. Och kan då inte patienten tänka sig det, så är det detsamma som att tacka nej till vård, vilket också står inskrivet på 1177 i vissa regioner, vet jag i alla fall. Så att man kan tydligt hänvisa till det där det går. Och om nödvändigt avvisa patienten. Och då kan man tycka att det här låter ju väldigt liksom fyrkantigt, men det är klart att det finns situationer där vi exempelvis utifrån bakgrund kan byta vårdpersonal i en önskan av exempelvis en kvinnlig gynekolog. Det brukar oftast vara det exempel man tar upp. Men då gäller det att ta reda på vad det är som gör att just i det enstaka fallet, och att vi också kan argumentera för att just i det här fallet gör vi så här utifrån just den patientens enskilda behov. Och sen så dokumenterar vi allt detta i medkontrollprov för att vi ska kunna följa det och återvända till enheterna och se att man har gjort någon form av åtgärd. Att man pratar om det på APT till exempel, på läkarmöten eller vad det kan vara. Så att man lyfter det här och pratar om det. Vad tycker folk om det här? Och jag tänkte, du kan nog byta. Det kanske är min sista bild sen. För det blir ganska mycket sådär när vi reflekterar kring dels hur vi är medarbetare. Och jag ska inte prata om det här nu, men vi ska veta att det förekommer ganska mycket diskriminering där. Vad jag förstår när jag är ute. På Sahlgrenska Universitetssjukhuset så är vi, ja nu är vi lite mindre då, men säg att vi är 16 500 anställda då. Vi har nog förlorat ett gäng. Men det är ändå ganska många människor som vi kan gå runt och prata med. Och vi förstår att det förekommer en ganska stark diskriminering medarbetare till medarbetare. Och ganska mycket sexuella trakasserier. Från inte alls ovanligt att jag har unga läkare, ganska ofta kvinnor, som beskriver vad som kan hända i ett kafferum till exempel. Och på vilket sätt man pratar i det kafferummet. Så att man kan känna sig väldigt, väldigt utsatt. Men det kan också vara exempelvis om man lever i en homosexuell partner. Och så kan man liksom inte ens lyfta det i kafferummet. För man har förstått redan innan att det kommer inte fungera. Så man vill nästan inte vara kvar. Det finns liksom inte en arbetsplats som är inbjuden till det. Medarbetare kontra patient. Och det är det vi har pratat ganska mycket om nu. Men vi har också situationer där vi upplever att närstående är väldigt diskriminerande och kränkande mot patienten. Och, där behöver vi, och då hamnar vi i det här dilemmat. Vi kanske behöver ha en dialog med närstående för att patienten just nu inte har den förmågan att kunna föra sin talan. Och samtidigt så finns det en stark upplevelse från sjuksköterskor, läkare, fysioterapeuter att så här kan man inte tala till någon. Och då försöker vi liksom lyfta det i reflektion och hur skulle vi eventuellt kunna prata om detta. Och sen hamnar vi ganska ofta där, men vad är vårdens uppdrag? Och jag tänker att vi behöver hitta och förstå att vårdens uppdrag är förstås att vi ska ge god och säker vård till utsatta, sårbara människor. Men det innebär inte att det finns en rättighet att bli utsatt för kränkning och diskriminering generellt. Sen kan vi ibland ha patienter som inte har den förmågan att förstå vad det är man utsätter för. Men att vården tidigare, och jag tror att Lotta nämnde det i början, att vården tidigare så fanns det nästan liksom ett utrymme för att, när jag började för jättelänge sedan inom psykiatrin till exempel, och då var det nästan självklart att man skulle tolerera hur mycket som helst från såväl den äldre, i det här fallet skötargruppen, mentalskötargruppen, gentemot när man var en ganska ung person som kom in där. Men också från patient och eller närstående. Så vi behöver prata om det här ute på enheterna. Så att det inte heller landar fel. Att vi ska förstås liksom förstå det här, tänker jag, med att vi är vården och det är patienter. Men vi måste också veta vad som är, alltså i min profession. Vad behöver jag tolerera och inte tolerera? Där tänker jag tror att det är sista bilden, Hanna, du som styr där. Eller hur? Ja. Ja. Där tänker jag att jag avrundar nu och ser om det kanske har kommit in någon fråga eller någonting från omvärlden, eller om det är kaffe.
Ja, vi har fått in flera stycken frågor, men vi tänker att några sparar vi till paneldiskussionen. Men en fråga som var nu lite mer specifikt till dig, Cecilia, där en av deltagarna, Sara, skriver: det verkar vara ett bra upplägg på hur man ska hantera kränkningar av olika slag, det du beskriver. Men är det här en rutin som finns på alla sjukhus? För den har jag inte hört talas om.
I Västra Götalandsregionen så ligger den som en regional rutin utifrån med utgångsläge från den som vi skapade på Sahlgrenska Universitetssjukhuset. Men jag vill återigen säga att den som skapade första rutinen, det var Region Jönköping. Och sen tror jag att det finns några regioner som har tagit efter det. Men jag tror inte att den finns i alla regioner i Sverige. Nej. Men man får jättegärna gå in och sno våran. Så bara ta den och ta tillbaka den till sin region ifall det inte finns någon. Och se om skulle det här kunna vara användbart för oss.
Toppen. Tack så jättemycket för en väldigt intressant och viktig presentation och också för svar på frågorna. Vi tänker att vi nu tar en liten kaffepaus. Det har börjat trilla in en hel del frågor, vilket är superkul. Vi skriver ner och återkommer med dem så att de är inte bortglömda. Och så kommer vi tillbaka 14:50, tänker vi, för paneldiskussion. So now we'll have a short coffee break and we will be back with the discussion and the questions in 10 minutes at 2:50. So see you soon. Hi and welcome back. Let's now start with part 2, the panel discussion. So I will stop sharing my screen. And we can now see all the panelists. And we want to just start with a short introduction of this as well. And when we in SLS KUF plan event and invite guests, we aim to find a representative group of knowledgeable speakers, taking, for example, gender, LGBTQI, ethnicity, culture, and age into account. And this was also the case when we invited guests to this event, but for different reasons, some of our invitees could not attend. But we would just like to start off the discussion to mention that we are aware that the panel today is not as diverse as we would wish for. And today's experts are not representative of different ethnic groups who commonly are subjected to racism, ethnic discrimination, which is problematic and unfortunate. But we want to highlight this, but also mention that all our guests today bring in perspectives and experiences that can help us raise awareness of this problem and prevent the structural discrimination that exists in healthcare today. And we are very happy to have all of you with us today and to be joined by these 6 experts for today's discussion. And we plan to organize more events targeting discrimination with a broader representation in the future. And now that we have listened to an introduction about discrimination in healthcare by Lotta and Cecilia, and we have already mentioned all our panelists of today's event, but we want to take a round where you can introduce yourself, tell us briefly about your experience and why you're here today, as well as answer the question, how do you and your organization work to prevent and eliminate discrimination and racism? And we could start with you, Oliver, please.
Yeah, thank you very much also for the invitation to this panel. And I'm very appreciative that you also mentioned the fact that it is not representative in that sense. But this is also our function. We have to still have this discussion, and even if it feels sometimes uncomfortable to talk about racism, it's so important. And that's also why I'm glad to be here. My name is Oliver. I've been with Médecins Sans Frontières since almost 20 years now in different places around the world. Now here in Sweden as a general director since 3 years. And certainly also the topic of dismantling racism, decolonizing our movement are very top on our agenda, both in Sweden as much as internationally. And this is very important to us because, you might know our principles and our values, which are very much that we treat anybody, irrespective of race, religion, political beliefs, etc. And as such, you might think, racism shouldn't be a problem in an institutional organization such as ours. However, institutional structural racism exists. And us being an organization that grew up through a history based in Europe, we also must self-reflect and we must be self-aware and understand how do our principles like impartiality, for example, relate to equity, and how does equity of care relate to the work that we're doing internationally in order to head-on deal with issues and basically identify problems in order to then also solve them. So within our organization, it's a big topic, something that is very openly and transparently discussed. And as such, also something that I hope to elaborate a little bit today, also through questions and bring closer to others, because I believe it is an important topic, not just for our organization or sector, but generally everywhere where we work, and especially where we work with patients and communities.
Thank you very much, Oliver. And we'll get back with more questions to you, but we'll move on to Mathilde.
Yes. Hey, so my name is Mathilde Gray. I'm a district nurse and I work at the Swedish Red Cross. So we have a health referral clinic here in Stockholm, and the patients that I meet, they are most likely undocumented, and they come to see us because they do not know that they have any access to healthcare. or they have been denied healthcare. We also have a clinic for migrants who cannot access healthcare, for example, due to to pay full price. And our experiences we use to lift these patient cases and to advocate for migrants' access to healthcare. So that's the perspective I will bring in. At the Swedish Red Cross, we of course have a zero tolerance for discrimination with a well-included plan for what to do when it happens, or if it happens, when it happens. But as you all know, that's not enough. So the Red Cross as an organization assists people with humanitarian needs, and it should always be done impartially. And this is the core of the Red Cross. However, we are well aware that we need to improve our diversity in Sweden. I can speak for Sweden. And this is a continuous work, and we must never think that we are done with this. And the main goal is that our organization should always mirror the society at large. The ongoing question is how do we become more attractive?
Thank you very much, Mathilde. And just like you mentioned, it shouldn't exist, but it still exists in every organization. And Cecilia.
Oh, thank you. Maybe I just make it very short then, since I already had an opportunity to present myself. So my name is Cecilia Lundmark, and I work as a registered nurse at Sahlgrenska University Hospital with mainly ethical guidance, ethical questions. So the ethical question is, of course, as Mathilde describes, the patients, the non-document patients, and their right to get care. And then I also work with this routine that I just presented before. So, well, that's mainly my job, to be out there and talk about ethics, which is a great job. So I just think I'll leave it like that for the moment.
Perfect, thank you. And David, what's your experience and how do you work with this question?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation today. My name is David, and I work here in Gotland since 2.5 years, and I live in Sweden for 3.5 years. And I was born and raised up in Turkey, Istanbul. There I got my medical degree, and I worked within internal medicine. So racism and discrimination has always been an intellectual question, a part of my life, because you just not get a name like David in Turkey. It's an unusual name, so it has been a question that I think over for a long time. And I work here in region Gotland, and it's the tiniest community in Sweden. And what we do here, we have a clear policy, and every year we get a question, an enquete, a questionnaire from our employer, and there we get to answer questions. And one of them is if we have experienced any racism or any mobbing or any sexual offensive behavior in our workplace. So that's a part where Region Gotland gets the answers in a collective level. And another part of the process is that every year, each and every employee has a meeting with his or her own chef. And then it's an obligatory question that your chef asks you if you have been subjected to such kind of behavior. So it's encouraging to know that one is screening the whole region, and everybody is answering, has at least the opportunity to answer this question. So that's the basic policy here on the island.
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing in that perspective as well. And over to Madeleine.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me. It is an honor to be a part of this event and especially this highly qualified panel. And I must say that I learned a lot by listening to Lotta and Cecilia, and it's an applaudable initiative from Sahlgrenska and Region Jönköping as well. So thank you for that. So my name is Madeleine Liljegren. I'm a medical doctor and a PhD. I am currently doing my residency in psychiatry in Stockholm. And since 2019, I'm the president of the Swedish Junior Doctors Association, SYLF, Sveriges Yngre Läkares Förening, which is a part of the Swedish Medical Association, Läkarförbundet. So what we do in our organization is quite a lot, but we can always do better. But I would say that the primary goal for us is to inform and educate our elected representatives in SYLF and Läkarförbundet on how to handle these issues. Because as you may know, we are trying, even though I'm an ethnical Swedish person, I'm also, of course, a spokesperson for all of our members, which includes every gender identity, sexual identity, orientation, ethnicity, etc. So we have a very important work to do in SYLF and Läkarförbundet to try to, when a member approaches us with this kind of question or issue, maybe he or she has been discriminated, we have to take that further and try to maybe do a process with this. So that's the main part, I would say, that inform and educate our elected representatives. SYLF also published reports and surveys on the matter. A few years ago, we published a report on this matter. Have you been discriminated when working as a junior doctor? And we found out that a shocking third said yes to that question. And it was there were two groups that stood out, and it was young women and also men of another descent in Swedish. So as you may know, it's complex, it's intersectional, but that's one thing we do as well. And to say the least, I would say also that we work within our organization on how can we do better. So a few years ago, we also we produced a tool, you can say, for the election committee in our organization, the ones who propose a new board of directors, for example. So when we use this tool, we can also see if the board of directors, is it representative when it comes to age, gender, specialty, place of residence, you name it. And also, I have to say, we try to do our best to also influence the Swedish Medical Association in these issues and questions. And I could say that also thanks to SYLF and also the SLS Student, the Swedish Medical Association student organization, we think and we hope there will be more focus on these issues this fall, even within the Läkarförbundet, Swedish Medical Association. So we do a lot of things, but we can always do better.
Thank you very much. And the work you're doing is very important, as well as collecting information and collecting experiences from your members as well. And last but not least, Lotta, you're also a member of the Swedish Society of Medicine Ethics Committee. Would you like to tell us something about that as well?
Yeah, together with Cecilia and Hannah, I participate in our meetings and we focus on ethics in a general sense. And at our latest session, we actually discussed these questions quite a lot. And even though it was at the end of the meeting, the interest was huge. And I think every delegate could see the implications and the importance of raising awareness here. But besides that, I think my role as a teacher is most important here. I think it's quite easy for me to integrate those perspectives as I teach human rights and equal treatment and access to healthcare and so forth. But I also think it's important for teachers in other subjects and topics to integrate those perspectives. And I think there are some work left to do, I'm afraid. But the interest is growing, and I think more and more teachers are aware of the importance of including those perspectives. I recently read some research saying that it takes 6 weeks before the students are absorbed in the culture they meet where they work. So that's a bit discouraging, I would say. But I've also noted that when different workplaces transform, it's often from the initiative from recently employed young doctors and nurses and so forth. So I keep some hope that the best way to integrate a better understanding of our similarities and differences is through the students.
Thank you so much, Lotta, for bringing these very important aspects up. As we are here today with a lot of soon to be graduated medical doctors and some perhaps already graduated, and probably also some other professionals within the healthcare sector, but especially as you say, a lot of young medical students might have a chance to change. I see that a lot of questions is targeting this, and perhaps a feeling of not knowing what to do and insecurity. We have, for example, here one question that I will direct towards David, and then perhaps also Madeleine, but first David. Do you have any suggestions on what one can do when experiencing offensive behaviors at the workplace from both colleagues and patients? What should you say? How should you act? I have often found myself in these situations and rarely know what to do. And I usually just end up trying to ignore it and shake it off. So David, could you try to answer this question?
Yeah, sure. Every case is unique, and every case should be examined very carefully, because it's such a subject that it's easy to misinterpret matters and things sometimes. But if it is something direct, as it was very good that Lotta stressed out what is direct discriminating and indirect discriminating, and what's the border and how we interpret things. But first of all, we need to know who are we going to speak with, who are we going to turn us and discuss the incidents. And I think a university board, institution, a clinic should be clear in the policies and say, if you ever be facing such kind of discriminating action, yeah, you will talk with me. And one should know their rights. And as it's been stressed out today, we have medical unions in our communities. I'm a member of the Gotland's Läkare Union, GLF. So we should know that we can speak to the people who are there for us to help, to analyze, and to take the question further. On the other side, I believe that the employee has a responsibility to take measures and to discuss these incidences. But in Sweden, or overall, we will not like that if my individual matter will be taken to a personal meeting and it's carried over me. So I believe the employee should gather these files and should create a summary. And then maybe once in a year, twice in a year, we could have an open forum to discuss such kind of incidences in a general level and think together and establish new policies. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for these aspects. And I think we had another question for you later. What would your suggestions for the employees be? And thank you for answering that already. And I think they are really great suggestions. And I wonder if Madeleine would like to comment on perhaps the other part of this aspect with the unions and how can I as an employer turn and get support from the union. Yes, please go ahead.
Of course, and thank you for bringing this up, because our biggest problem, I would say, in SYLF for Läkarförbundet is that all of these situations, they don't reach us, of course. So we cannot act on something that might have been discrimination if no one tells us about it. So that's my first take-home message to all of you. Like, if you feel that you've been discriminated, please talk to us. Contact, as David said, your local läkarförening or SYLF. That's a good start. You can always also call our medlemsrådgivningen, where we have legal counselors for our members that can guide you through this issue. And I'm very happy that Lotta mentioned that and stressed that it is the employer's responsibility to make sure that your working environment, and this, my friends, includes students, which everyone doesn't know about, is safe. And you should never feel harassed, not by your patients or by your colleagues or anyone. If you feel like you've been harassed or discriminated, please also do mention this to your boss, of course, or if you're a student, to the dean or the program director at your university. And don't forget to contact us. But if you don't, we cannot help you. So that's our biggest problem, that we know that people don't contact us, maybe because they're scared, or we have done not a good job by informing people that they should. So now I'm trying to inform you again. Please, please, please get in touch with us, and we'll do everything we can to help you.
Thank you, Madeleine, for really emphasizing this. And
could I please
yes,
just add there, just as Madeleine stressed, it's the employer's responsibility, but if you feel somewhat uncomfortable to approaching the head of departments and so forth, it's also a possibility to contact the safety representative, skyddsombudet, in the workplace. And yeah, you'll probably find out who that person is, and that you can address this person with confidence and without being exposed to the rest of the workplace and so forth.
Thank you for adding on to that, Lotta. Sarah, would you like to go ahead with the next question?
Yes, one question to Mathilde. You work for the Swedish Red Cross and the Health Referral Clinic in Stockholm, and undocumented migrants in all regions have the right to treatment that cannot be deferred. And in some regions, such as Västerbotten, they have the right to full healthcare. In your experience, does the treatment that is given to migrants and undocumented patients differ from the care that is given to Swedish patients? And if so, why?
Well, the simple answer is yes. But, and also just referring to the question, I'm assuming that the term Swedish is used by, as folkbokförd is probably what you mean, because that's when you have access to full healthcare. And as an asylum seeker or a person who's undocumented, you most likely will not, except for Västerbotten, as you mentioned. And the legislation giving access to healthcare that cannot defer or be postponed, it doesn't include any limits to what healthcare we as healthcare personnel can give. The healthcare that can be postponed is actually rather limited if you think about it, and it's described by Socialstyrelsen what is to be included. But we noticed that unfortunately it is often interpreted as that's the only thing you should give. And another problem that we discuss a lot is that that leads to ethical inconvenience for healthcare personnel is that how Socialstyrelsen makes the decision of what can be postponed or not. That's to be decided by the individual person who is treating a patient. And this opens up for many conflicts. Obviously, the doctor's ethical code, including to never discriminate patients and always have the individual's best health as a goal. So it is discriminatory in itself to prioritize healthcare from any other perspective than the medical need. And our experience is that the knowledge regarding the healthcare that migrants who are undocumented can access is limited within the healthcare system. The problems often start when they try to make an appointment, and there seems to be a fear to do something that you shouldn't do. You're scared to offer something that you would then have a boss or someone senior saying that you shouldn't have done. And since the knowledge is limited, it opens up for individual opinions, of course, regarding who can be undocumented, what somebody who is undocumented should be allowed to get or not. And this is something that we actually hear when we contact healthcare givers. So if the access to healthcare for irregular migrants is not included in the theoretical parts of medical education, there is a major risk that the newly examined doctors and nurses will be fostered into misconception. What did you say before? 7 weeks? Regarding this, and then there's a new generation of healthcare personnel with the wrong knowledge, basically, that keeps denying undocumented patients access to healthcare. So yes, there is a big difference. And also there's a difference between this is what we see. There shouldn't be a difference, but between asylum seekers and undocumented patients. So when you get your negative from migrations, they commonly come to us and say that I can no longer go to Vårdcentralen because I don't have a LMA card. So that's when you start getting denied, even though you should have the exact same right to healthcare.
Very good point that you lifted there, that if the education is not correct, the new doctors and the healthcare workers will not act in a correct way. So thank you very much for that.
And I would just like to add on to that, Mathilde, because as in some regions now, the undocumented patients have the same right to healthcare as all other Swedish citizens. But in some regions, the documents at the hospital have not been updated. So if you go to your local PMs, it's not updated. So I think that we have a long way to go to bring this information out to medical students and our colleagues. I agree with you.
Exactly. And can I just add, we have we work nationally, so we are based in Stockholm. But if there is a problem when you start to work, you who are students now, you can always contact us, and we will nationwide argue cases with clinics.
That is great to know, and sadly, probably something that we will all face now, coming up as soon to be junior doctors, all of you in the class at KI listening in today. But it's great to know that you're working in this question, and that we can also contact you if we need support. There's another question here that I would like to address, and it's about today's panelists. As Sarah already mentioned, when we plan any event nowadays with an organization, we try to be aware of who we invite, which organization we contact, and try to get as good as a representation we can. When we look at discrimination, there are the 7 different categories of discrimination. And as we could not cover all of them, we tried to be as broad as possible. However, we sent out invitations to, for example, Transcultural Center at Stockholm, where we have worked with great experts from different ethnicities before, but none of them could participate today, sadly. We also wrote to Svenska Riksförbund, so Swedish Afro's national organization, to try to start up a collaboration. However, they could not attend either. And as well for the HBTQI organization, they could not attend today, sadly. But this is something that we are really aware of, and also something that we want to continue to work with and have more events and more discussions and webinars and workshops where we try to be as representative as possible. So thank you for bringing it up, and it's something that we are constantly working with now in our organization. Let's see, Sarah, are you ready to bring up the next question?
Yes, and one that I would like to direct to Oliver. As a Doctor Without Borders, it's an international organization From your experience, Oliver, how does this compare to other countries and healthcare systems?
Yeah, really good question, because I guess it's not surprising that it compares very, very well, right? When we deal with human beings, we see similar behaviors in different places. So if we look specifically at other countries and healthcare systems, I could see two perspectives to that. One perspective is the healthcare systems that are existent in the countries. And very often you see, discrimination, racism, ethnic divides across countries. And very often, Médecins Sans Frontières, the Läkare Utan Gränser, is active in these countries because you will have groups of the population who are, for example, excluded from healthcare or who don't have access, for example, due to war or conflict. Sometimes you even have governments who deny access to some of their citizens, which we refer to as structural violence, for example, right? For diverse reasons. For example, people may be denied food in places where there is malnutrition in order to, weaken opposition, for example. So in many places where patients suffer from exclusion, this is where we work, and these are very structural problems. We can think of the Rohingya, for example, between Myanmar and Bangladesh, but also if you think more of racist or ethnic discrimination, skin color often plays a role. In places like Ethiopia, for example, you have highlanders of a higher, lighter skin color versus lowlanders of a darker skin color. Also in Haiti, because of the history, different shades of skin color play a role. And that can have an impact also on our staff, for example, doctors, nurses, healthcare providers, who are, perhaps within that system, or because of their upbringing, have those cultural perceptions that should be one way or the other. And it's very important for us to not play into these colonial, neo-colonial systems. So often these systems were also used by colonists to divide and conquer, right? If you take Rwanda, for example, you take a small minority, give a lot of power in order to subdue another ethnic group. So these are colonial systems that we should not play into, that we have to be very aware about, have to be impartial, and definitely practice equity. And then secondly, when we look at the work that we do as an international organization, it becomes, of course, really important that we don't just copy-paste colonial processes, right? That we don't become white sabers, as we sometimes say. Now we come, let's say, from Sweden, from Germany, or the United States, and we might come from a certain privileged position when it comes to healthcare, when it comes also to treatment of patients, when it comes to understanding diseases, etc. So we ourselves have to be very self-aware that we treat people with equity, not just equality, but with equity, that we understand the needs of the individuals, and that we don't just from above kind of say, these are the health problems that we know better about, let's treat them, but rather bottom up, that we see what are the needs, what are the health problems that need to be approached. And finally, I mean, this is something that I guess could be very easily also brought to places like Sweden. When you talk about equity, when you talk about, respecting patients, it's often that we don't provide healthcare to people, but that we provide healthcare with people, that we do it together, that we understand, listen, that we're aware of ourselves and of others. And I think that's really important to some of the questions that were asked earlier, because, the biggest difficulties we have are passive bystanders who don't know, how should I react? What should I do? Are people who are maybe confronted for the first time with these things, where concepts like racism are super scary, you think of the Ku Klux Klan maybe, or things like that, and suddenly you realize we might have structures that could be racist within my own organization. So it's really important to talk about it as much as possible, to demystify and to actively approach it, whether it's in another country or here.
Thank you very much. And to provide healthcare with and not for is a very nice sentence, very nicely put. And David, you raised your hand. No. Okay. Then we'll move on to a question we'll address to Cecilia. And there's one that come in from the audience, and that they feel like the answers that came up are directed to the individual, but we need to work on the bigger perspective to make a change or create change at the workplace. We need to get all our colleagues with us, and we need to come together. And how can we do that?
Well, if I only could answer that in one sentence, I'd be happy. But as you all have mentioned, the importance of talking about these matters all time and not pretend that they do not exist. That is one thing. But I think you have to have it from the top bosses of the hospital or wherever you are. They have to say, this is important. This is something we have to work with. Everyone has to work with it. We have to report when it happens. And Sahlgrenska is not, you know, the best thing on the universe, but sometimes we manage to get it a little bit right. And I think with this, we have right now, we have like posters all over the hospital, how we were working with these questions, who you can reach out for, the way you can do it. And we also have put it into our program for leaders. They have to have like an education of 4 hours when they have to sort of stand with me and just have to listen, like it or not, but they have to. And we bring an example. And I think it's quite often people say, oh, I'm so sick of all these people saying they're being humiliated and God, can't they just take it? Do we really have? Yes, you do. And if we can't get that change from there, I think we have to work top to bottom and bottom to top. And it has to be part of everything else. So in your introduction to the hospital or the clinic or wherever you're going to work, in that introduction, we have to set focus on these questions. And then we have to bring it in all the time, like once every semester on your meetings or whatever. And because there's so many of these people saying, oh, do we have to talk about this? God, can't we just get back to work? And that's we. That's us who's sitting here. That's we saying that instead of listen to that person. So the individual should feel safe to go and talk to someone, preferably the boss. But as Lotta say, that might not always be the case. It might even be the boss being, you know, the part you don't want to talk to. Try to find someone from your union or some colleagues or HR, human resource, if you have someone there, but it has to be sort of lifted up to there. We collect samples when I go out, so we don't identify and said this girl or this partner or this person. We just say, here's the examples. How would you as a boss deal with them? And then they have to work through cases and see how they work. So I think it's a continuous work that will always go on. I don't think anybody can say, oh, it doesn't happen in our organization, because it's just not like that. It happens every day, all times. So maybe that was a little bit of an idea, but I think it has to come from, someone has to make the decision up here. We're going to work with this question. And if they don't, it's really, really hard.
Yes, thank you very much. It has to come from above, but it also has to include everyone. And like you say, people keep on saying, why do we keep doing this? Why do we have to hear this again? But that's the important thing, I think, is your message as well, if I understood correctly. And to continue on that, I think a question a couple of you could answer, but we'll start with Madeleine. How could you handle the social consequences of actually bringing up a question like this and reporting a colleague or even a boss? The person who is writing the question is asking how maybe people think it's not worth it because there's so much social consequences of doing it.
Yeah, if I knew the answers to that question, we wouldn't be sitting here, I guess. I totally agree that this is super awkward to bring issues like this up. As I said, as you can see, I'm of Swedish descent, but I have been discriminated as a woman. So I know that this is really hard to handle when you're experiencing this kind of stuff. So the only thing I can say is, if I look to myself, what can I do as a colleague? I think that's an even more important question. Like every other one of us who hears or sees one of our colleagues or students or fellows that are being discriminated by someone, even if it's a patient or the boss or the colleague, that we who are not being discriminated right there and at that time, that we stand up for our colleague and we say that that thing you said or that thing you did is not acceptable. I think that all of us, me including, should be even better at doing that. So I know that there are social consequences. I also know that we have a special vulnerable group, I would say, in the healthcare sector among the members I'm representing, and that's the vikarierande underläkare, the ones who are not, who hasn't gotten an allmäntjänstgöring AT yet. I know that we have seen in our reports that some people are afraid of speaking up at the clinic, whether it's about discrimination or something else, because they're so afraid that if I do, I won't get my AT or ST. And that's a huge problem. And again, it's the employer's responsibility to make sure that the working environment is safe and free from discrimination, harassment, etc. But once again, I think we all can do better, like standing up for our colleagues when we see or hear stuff like that, because it shouldn't give you any social consequences whatsoever that you're just protecting your own rights.
Thank you, Madeleine, for bringing that up. And there was also a question regarding if SYLF is working specifically with one aspect of discrimination more than another, or lifting up more than another. Would you like to comment on this?
So I can again say that we are, as maybe I didn't mention it in the beginning, I'm not sure, but we are a part of the Swedish Medical Association. And the Swedish Medical Association is the union for doctors, but we're also a professional organization as the Swedish Society of Medicine. So it's we need to work with all these issues. We are not, I don't think we can say that we're working with one or another more than the other. It's not like that. We work with members who are experiencing problems. If it's at work, we're trying to help them. If it's like, as I said, I've also been discriminated before as a woman. If I call our medlemsrådgivning and tell them what happened, they will work with me on that issue, of course, but that doesn't mean that we don't work with other issues as well. So I don't know if that's the answer to the question, but as the union, we're working with every diskrimineringsgrunder, of course.
Thank you, Madeleine. Cecilia, are you raising your hand?
Yes, I am actually. I just wanted to hang on to what Madeleine said at first and to emphasize the importance of colleagues, other people to stand up and say, look, what's happening there is not okay. Because when we are in a room and there might be some kind of either sexual harassment or anything else, we quite often go up to that person after the meeting and say, I really didn't like what was happening in there. That's no support. The support is at when it's the action, and you can say, what you just said to Hannah now is not okay in my ears. So we can sort of take that to us and we can be part of that, because it makes it really hard for that person to continue. And I find quite often that people can tell me stories where they've been discriminated and how their colleagues have come up after the meeting and said, oh, David, we really didn't like what was happening there in the room. And that is no help for David. That is more like saying, so why didn't you support me in there? So I think that I just wanted to sort of, emphasize on what Madeleine said, because it's so important, and it doesn't take a lot to do it. But once we've done it, we can actually change things.
Thank you, Cecilia. It's something that we've been discussing a lot in our organization among young colleagues and medical students. How can we support each other, create more awareness, and also lower the barrier to actually speak to each other? And then perhaps by supporting each other as young colleagues, also make sure that it comes up for the employer and to the union. because it's not always easy, as many of you have said, and of course, and we need to find different ways of working with these barriers, and hopefully that we as organizations can be one part of that, just by being a platform for young students and colleagues to create discussion and also trying to raise awareness of your rights while you're working. Next question will go to David, and it's about prejudice in language use. How can a healthcare worker who is subjected to prejudice that they do not speak the Swedish language well enough handle that situation? Perhaps it's not actually a language barrier, but prejudice towards language. Could you try to answer that, David?
Yeah, thank you, Hanna. I've got 2 points of view here. It's the first point is about me as a person in Sweden who has learned the language as a second language, and it's not the mother language. And it matters a lot of my colleagues who have a different origin and learn Swedish later. So what's the limit? What's the border when you learn a new language and you will work as a healthcare professional in Sweden? How good can you speak the language and how competent you are? And there are examinations that we are taking that you can prove that you can use the language in a high level. And in Swedish, we say it like patientsäkerhet, that it's the best and in the secure side for the patient. So every individual has his or her own responsibility to know and to get that proven that, okay, I can speak to the language to a degree that it will not risk the patient's life or the patient's health when she or he is in the consultation. So once we are sure about ourselves and we have got this degree, we can meet prejudices. It's okay. It can happen because there are many factors that affects the communication. It can be the patient's age, it can be the patient's hearing ability, it can be the patient's dialect, and I have to accept that I can't speak Swedish like a natural speaker, but still I know that I am doing my best. So we should be aware about our communication in the first place. It's something that you learn within time. If you experience that you are explaining something or asking something to the patient and you don't get the correct answer or the correct response, do not be afraid to ask, are you with me? Did you get what I say? Should I repeat it again? Should I speak slower? So it's the art of communication in the first place. But in the second place, if the patient still is making question marks, then there are other factors that you are working with a team together. Maybe you have a doctor who is responsible for you, your chef, your other colleagues who can reflect about your language talents, and then you will expect that, oh, we know him, he can speak the language, or he is enough secure and competent to have this communication and to use the language. So it's a thing that develops within time. But we know that the Swedish society is very, very accustomed to meet foreign doctors. So yeah, they don't usually bring it up to your face. They don't take it within the consultation. But I know this, that when a Swedish patient gets to meet a Swedish doctor, they become happy at the same time, and they get sometimes relief, and they say, oh, I'm so happy to be able meeting a Swedish doctor. So it's a very sensitive point, and my colleague will surely continue with the consultation and take care of the patient's actual situation, and the topics goes forward. But it's very, very sensitive, but we shouldn't be afraid, you know, to ask if we are being understood and if we are being corrected. Yeah, there should be a confidence, but we should be open to develop it further. But but if there is a signal that the patient is giving, we shouldn't directly interpret it as a racist or discriminating moment, but a moment to get us better, to introduce, to improve us. So it's complicated, but I believe it's in the first place to be gotten understand and to have the security and good feeling that the one is getting a good and quality healthcare. Oh, that's my answer.
David, for sharing your experience in a sensitive topic in a way, and I guess also mostly individual for each and every one of us working clinically, and each and every meeting with a single patient that can be different. But it's really great to get to know more about your experience and from what you have encountered as a medical doctor. And from that experience, I would also like to ask you from the other side, here's a question about how we as healthcare workers can become more aware of our prejudice and work with our prejudice so that it does not affect the healthcare quality of our patients. What do you think about that?
Can you explain a little bit more when you mean our prejudice? What do you mean exactly?
So I think it might be that each and every one of us has got prejudice that affects our everyday work. And the question was, how can we become more aware of them working as a medical doctor, for example, and so that they will not affect the quality of healthcare given to the patients?
Yeah, I think I get your point of view. Well, it's like meeting a pain patient and a patient in pain, and you can't promise that the patient will be without pain in the future. There are some situations like that, and then you say that, okay, maybe it's time to accept that you have pain and you will live with this pain, but this is a milder situation and that we are talking. So we have to accept that, okay, I'm stuck at this point. Well, maybe I'm stressing this point too much out. Then we should accept it first and talk to your colleagues, as the other panelists have said until now. Don't be afraid to talk about it, and at one point, if you need, get professional help to get out of this difficult dilemma or situation. So admit it, try to resonate around it in a professional manner, like you will treat a patient if someone would come and consult you. Okay, I think I'm getting too much attention because I'm a gay person with feminine gestures. So how would you meet such a person? So try to reflect around it. Try to talk with a colleague that you feel close, a friend, and yeah. Then once you accept it and you embrace it, maybe the society will be forming around you. And if it's some situation that you can't help, yeah, you will just put out your best qualities so that people can see it. Yeah.
Thank you, David. And yes, one should not underestimate the support of the colleagues, and not forget that when you're very busy out there working with a lot of patients and sometimes over time, but don't forget to get support among your own colleagues and friends. Oliver, you are raising your hand.
Yeah, to that topic, there are quite some interesting tools also that exist to uncover your unconscious biases. Often from human resources when it goes into job interviews, etc., because all of us have unconscious biases and it's quite important to be aware of them. So there's definitely also tools out there that can help you when it comes to patient treatment. because it can actually happen that your unconscious bias makes you treat a patient differently, like pain thresholds. You might make assumptions that one group of people perhaps feels less pain than another one and will prescribe differently. So there's very interesting ways to be aware of your well, conscious biases, but also unconscious biases. And it often goes to listening and self-awareness, self-understanding.
Thank you very much for that ad, Oliver. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. We have a lot of unanswered questions in the Q&A. But we wanted to give every one of you a final, opportunity to share your final thoughts of what you're taking home from this, or something you want to, final thing you want to share with us. Please, Mathilde.
So you can hear me now. Yes, I just thank you for inviting me to share our patients' problems within the healthcare system. And also I would like to, I've noticed in the chat, something that I will take with me is that obviously people are feeling unrepresented. And this is something that I would like to connect with how we are discussing within the Red Cross. Obviously we are not, how can we make people feel included? And this is obviously a problem today. So I'm going to bring it obviously back, and I think maybe everybody has to think about it. And I'm happy to attend as a listener in the future, those kind of seminars. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being here as well, and for picking up that note from the chat. Lotta, would you like to share one final sentence with us?
Yes, thank you. I'm also grateful for participating, and I hope I could contribute with something, but I've also learned a lot. Interesting questions and from the panels as well as the attendees, and also interesting perspectives from you all. So thank you.
Thank you too. And Cecilia?
Right. Well, I can only say thank you for the invitation to be here, even though, as you all have lifted the representation of all, it might not be the perfect one. I'm still happy to be here. And I just want to send, I think David said it very well at his last talk about, you know, how you can react. And I just want to send that with you. First of all, look at yourself. Who am I in this room? I think all the travels and all the journeys will start with oneself. And what can I contribute? And what do I do when I enter a room? Maybe I'm the one entering the room, sending out things that shouldn't be there. So, yeah. And if anybody want to, as I said before, I can send our routines to Hannah. If anyone want to see them and take them back to your region, more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Cecilia. Let's see, Oliver, would you like to go next?
Yeah, also a huge thank you for the invitation, and that you guys are picking this up and discussing it. We have to be less fearful of discussing topics like racism, discrimination, you know, white saviorism, things like that, our own privileged positions. And I really liked some of the statements, especially also from Cecilia, you know, take action, don't wait till afterwards, but be action oriented. And actually my message is the same that I share with my colleagues and with patients. Look how you, and it goes similar to what Cecilia said, how you can make a difference and how you can give agency to others. And it might be that you're discriminated against. So it's really important, like we just discussed and heard, where you can go to. And I learned a lot through that as well. I'm really, really glad and grateful for understanding also the Swedish society aspect better and the possibility that exists. But also to yourself, you know, don't be a jerk, really. Don't discriminate others, right? Be self-aware. And, you know, we all do have our prejudices, we do have different things. Be aware of them, question them, have others question them, don't put them away. And don't accept. Many times, you know, when it comes to these topics, they're gray areas. It's not clearly racism or not racism, but it's little gray areas. And people say, oh, it's just a joke, you know, don't worry about it. Or we always say this, don't accept it, you know, question it. At the very least, question it or speak out against it. And with that comes the questioning of power systems, management structures, you know, like we very correctly questioned this panel. Question the power structures within your organization so that you are part of. How representative is it? How diverse is it? And don't stop there. Don't say, I could say, you know, I'm a middle-aged, white, balding male, you know, who am I to say something? Well, if I am in a power position as I am as a general director, then it is my job to make sure that the next person possibly is not a middle-aged, balding white man, but somebody more diverse and that we are more inclusive. So don't push your responsibility away, but rather take that responsibility and act upon it.
Thank you, Oliver. Very important that you bring up, and also to once again be aware of who am I in this position and what can I do from that position in order to be a part of the change. David, your turn. Would you like to share some last things?
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. I'll just point the future right now. It's not a very promising future that we are heading to, but still hopeful. We have upcoming elections in Sweden within a year, and I believe the question about immigration will be a hot topic once again. We know that a humanitarian crisis is going in Afghanistan today, and we have a great deal to work over. But if we look toward the history, I think there is still development on the positive direction, and today we are the representatives that will carry it further. So yeah, we must do so much we are able to, we can do. It's no limitation, no demand. Just be out there and make your contribution, and it can be little, big. No, we are living in a world that these are so sensitive issues that we can't just demand things from our colleagues or surroundings, but we can make our very little contribution. So that's really matters, and thank you for today.
Thank you, David. Madeleine, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I would like to thank the organizer of this event. Again, I learned a lot, and it was an honor to be a part of this panel and discussion. And what makes me hopeful for the future is that this is clearly something that is engaging many of us, which has been more than clear today after this discussion. So I'm hopeful for the future when I hear all these wise words from junior doctors and other people. So yeah, I'm hopeful for the future. And again, if you're a member of the Swedish Medical Association and feel harassed or discriminated, please let us know, because if we don't know, we can't act on your case, which we want to do, of course, and do everything we can to help you. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll wrap up today's session, and we want to thank all the panelists for being here today with us. It's been an honor to have you, and we also have all the comments that you've written in the Q&A, and we will take them with us as well. Unfortunately, we haven't had the time to answer all the questions. But as a final thought, we as well want to share a take-home message with you, and that's, like everyone else mentioned, that everyone and all of us can do something and can stand up against and fight intolerant attitudes and prejudices. And rules, laws, and structures need to change in order to create a shift in attitude so that we all can contribute. And we want to finish off with one quote from Emily Kristoffersson's thesis that we mentioned in the beginning. And this one, I will take it in Swedish. Jag tycker att människor är ganska fega rent generellt. Det är ingen som sagt ifrån att så får ni inte göra, det är fel, eller vad som helst. Utan folk står bara tysta. And that's pretty much what we have been talking about today as well, to raise your voice. And I think that's a perspective that everyone can take with us today. So thank you all very much for listening, and to our panelists for being here. And please, if you're interested, check out our Facebook page as well as Instagram, or contact us on email if you have any thoughts or comment on this event, or if you want to get involved with us. So that's all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.